Okay, so we're recording here. Going to do a Cohiba Lancero review, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Cohiba, the story. So I got a box of Cohiba in a couple days ago, last week actually, and very green. So anyways, I got a box of Cohiba Lanceros and a box of Trinidad Fundadores. It's the same format. And the Trinidad Fundadores, they are over a year old. I think a year and a few months old. And the Cohibas are very young. That might not be a problem because young Cohibas are typically pretty good. Because of the third barrel fermentation, the tobacco goes under an extra fermentation in a whiskey barrel before it's rolled. That's kind of what makes Cohiba special. However, I have a vintage Cohiba from this is over 5 years old, so you can see that the band is old. This is probably from 2010 or 2009. I'm not quite sure exactly, but it's been sitting in my humidor for a long time. So I thought I would do an aged Cohiba and a vintage Cohiba. You don't see a lot of vintage Cohibas. People don't really age Cohibas. Pretty tight draw. Take a little bit more. Draw's a little tight, but that's pretty normal on these long cigars. This is a Lancero format or a Laguita Especial. That's another way to call it. Or you can just say it's a Panatella. I love these long cigars. Connoisseur's delight. I feel that the enjoyment of just the real enjoyment, the delicacy of the flavors, the transitions of how the flavors change throughout the cigar are more carefully observed when you have these longer cigars. So a lot of the connoisseurs, they love the long cigars, and I love long cigars. Pre-draw is musty, a little sour, like maybe a touch of cherry. It's a very subdued pre-draw. The construction of the wrapper, looks pretty good. Pretty nice, actually. There's no plume or anything on here, and to be honest, I've never seen Cohibas with plume. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people don't really age them, so maybe that's the reason. But I aged this for over 5 years, and nothing, no plume. Doesn't really look very oily. The cigar is quite firm. It's a little knotty. This is a hard roll, so. A little dried fruit, a little dried cherry, a little sour cherry, like a sour raisin. Pretty good. So let's get this dude cut up and see what we got. Toast up the ring. These are not hard to light. Oh wow. Mm. Mm. Toasty, very smooth, incredibly smooth. Just so smooth through the nose. Almond. Through the nose I get a lot of almond, real nutty. Mm. Mm, mm, mm. Wow. Creamy, nutty. Delicious. This is really... Oh man, this is delicious. This is very, very good. Wow. The burn looks okay. The ash is so white. Usually on these Cohibas you see a very white ash. Mm. So another thing about long cigars is they're really easy to light, you know, like I said, and they're, you know, when you smoke them, the cigar stays really cool. So, you know, you got a smaller ring gauge, and the cherry is smaller. It's difficult to overheat these things, so. Draws a little tight, but that's pretty typical. I mean, I like Lonsdale's because the draw is usually a little bit looser. Lonsdale's a long cigar, but the draw is looser on those. But on these Panatellas, you know, pretty tight most of the time. Yeah. Mm. Pretty good, yeah. Very almondy nuts. Mm. Creamy, delicious, very good, and just very smooth. I mean, the smoke is so smooth. Mm. Mm. Wow, I mean, you can definitely tell that this is a vintage Cohiba here. It's just the way it's tasting is just so mellow, amazingly mellow. So I'm going to do a review on this Cohiba. I'm going to talk about the Cohiba and the Fundadores. So after I do this Cohiba later tonight, I'm going to do the Fundadores, the Trinidad Fundadores. And I'm going to take some notes, compare some similarities in the blend, in the smoke in general. Yeah, wow, so good. Smoke smells so sweet. Very nice, very good. I'm loving this. It's very delicious. Mm. So Cohiba, the story of how Cohiba came about is very interesting. Apparently, after the revolution, so Cohiba is a post-revolution cigar brand. Not many of those. The story goes something like this. So Fidel Castro, he had this bodyguard named Chichi. And the bodyguard had a friend in a rolling factory named Eduardo Rivera. And Eduardo Rivera, you know, he was a farmer over there and worked in the rolling factory. He knew his shit about cigars. And he would make these private blends for himself and for his friends. And so Eduardo Rivera gave a few of these private blend stash of his to Fidel's bodyguard. Fidel's bodyguard standing next to the car waiting for Fidel to come down out from the building. And, you know, he's sitting there just waiting, and he decides to light up one of his cigars. Fidel comes, they hop in the car, and immediately Fidel is just amazed at the fantastic aroma of this cigar. So he says, what is this? Where'd you get that? And, you know, and the bodyguard just gave Fidel one. Fidel loved it. The aroma, the blend was so amazing, fantastic. Fidel loved it. So Fidel wanted to know, who is this Eduardo Rivera guy? So they go, they all meet up. Fidel asks Eduardo Rivera to start a line of cigars that's only for the government and only for Fidel. So they stopped, and it became Cohiba. So Eduardo Rivera, he invented Cohiba, not Avelino Lara. So Eduardo Rivera, he's doing really good. You know, about 5 years go by. He's pumping out Cohibas. They're diplomatic gifts. They're, you know, he's supplying Fidel with his stash. Fidel is, you know, out there on the cover of magazines with these big, you know, like these Panatella cigars, which were unheard of at the time. Nobody smoked these kinds of huge, long cigars. So, you know, the photo ops, everything, you know, Fidel, that picture of Fidel smoking that long cigar with his Comandante hat and everything, that became really famous around the world. So everybody wanted to know, what is this cigar? Well, it attracted the attention of Zino Davidoff. So Zino Davidoff comes to Cuba. At that time, the Cuban economy was really messed up with the embargo and all. It was in a bad situation. So Zino Davidoff smokes Eduardo Rivera's blend. Says, okay, this is awesome. I want the blend, and I want to buy the factory. The Laguito factory. But it was against the law for the Cuban government to sell, you know, property to anybody. It's communism, right? So you can't have private property. You definitely can't sell property to some foreign people, like Zino Davidoff. One year later, Eduardo Rivera quits. Gets out. Stops everything in the cigar business. Forgets about cigars. Totally quits. Why? I mean, if you can imagine, he's Fidel's right-hand cigar man. I mean, why would he just quit like that? In his statement, he said, if things aren't done optimally, there's no reason to do them. That's all he said. We don't know why he quit. Right around that time, Zino Davidoff creates a new blend, a new cigar, and starts selling a line of cigars, Davidoff cigars, that were made in the Laguito factory. So Davidoff starts a line, Eduardo Rivera quits. seems to me like the Cuban government sold Eduardo Rivera's blend to Zino Davidoff. Eduardo Rivera quit. Avelino Lara then took over the factory, 1970. So Avelino Lara, he's the new manager of El Laguito factory that made the Davidoffs, made the Cohibas, and Cohiba doesn't have a blend. So they asked Avelino Lara make a new blend for Cohiba. And Avelino Lara was the one that came up with the third barrel fermentation. Suddenly, Trinidad pops onto the scene. Trinidad is a mystery cigar. Nobody knows anything about Trinidad. It's like a top secret project. A top secret government cigar project. I mean, can you imagine? Most likely, Trinidad became Eduardo Rivera's Cohiba original blend. That was Trinidad. So, maybe what I think is that Eduardo Rivera's original blend can be smoked in very old Cuban Davidoffs and in Trinidad's. Cohiba is a different blend, only the tobacco undergoes the third barrel fermentation, whereas Trinidad's do not. Silky, creamy smoke. It's getting a little bit more creamy. It's sweeter. The sweetness is kicking in a little bit more, like a little bit of a honey sweetness. Very fresh through the nose, very delicious smoke here. Alright, well, I will get into the first third and come back when I'm in the second third of this really nice Cohiba Lancero vintage smoke here. Burn is looking good, the ash is looking good. So this is a very delicious smoke, very nice construction, very good cigar. Loving it. Nice, very God. Sweet, almost like a sweet apple fruit, apricot, something on that last draw. Very interesting. So it kind of started out very nutty, like almond and cream, and that nut has now transitioned into a more fruity taste. It's earthy, creamy, sweet fruit. Man. But above all, it is extremely mellow. Look at that ash. That's awesome. Alright, well, I'll come back here after I get done with the first third.